My name is Tobi Hill-Meyer, and I'm here to fuck and make porn. It's almost a controversial thing, but I think in a little way, my parents made me queer. At least culturally queer. That I was like going to gay pride parades in utero, and my parents worked on a feminist newspaper when I was a youngin', and got to really kind of be inundated with that kind of community and culture, and I think more than anything else, it's been my drive to seek that out and surround myself by it throughout the rest of my life. Being queer spawn has given me the opportunity to really think deep about a lot of these things a lot earlier than most people do. When I was 14, I was writing out gender theory and queer theory, and I didn't know it at the time, but once I got to college and started reading Butler and Foucault, my 14-year-old writings were pretty much on par. And I feel like that's always been very big for me, to spend a lot of time thinking about it. And trying to figure it out from a different starting point than most people. But having lesbian moms didn't automatically make them accepting of everything. When I came out as trans, they had to deal with a lot of shame and fear that made them bad parents, or that somehow it was proof that lesbians shouldn't be moms because they'll turn their little boys into girls. And it took them maybe 2 years to kind of reach a point where all of a sudden they saw me interacting in public where everyone else was identifying me as female, and it kind of freaked them out, but it was the turning point where they started to kind of get it. So one of the other things that's really been interesting for me with my parents, I didn't mean to talk about my parents this much, but that my parents are second wave feminists, and like most second wave feminists, they have done anti-porn activism. And so the dinner table when I was like 15 or so, we were having these kinds of conversations about how porn could potentially be empowering, and various kinds of things. When I was 16, I wanted to open up a feminist porn store, and the funny thing is I almost did, but that's another story.
So what did you decide to do instead?
Well, like most things, the source of money I almost had access to just disappeared, and so I just went to college. And by the time I was getting out of college, I kind of realized, I looked around, I had enough access to, you know, it wasn't really called queer porn back then, maybe dyke porn. And I spent years looking through dyke porn for any representation of trans women. And I found just a minuscule amount, a couple of films where there was a small role or something or other, and it wasn't all that visible, and in every case, the only reason I knew there was a trans woman in that film was because the trans woman in the film emailed me and told me so. So I was like, you know, I want to do something about this, and a year prior I had ended up doing some mainstream porn to raise funds to get to Camp Trans, and so I kind of had that background. I had a lot of other sex workers in my immediate community, my partners, and so I kind of decided, you know, this is the kind of thing where if I don't see what I want, then I can do it myself. And that's what I did. I started my first video, and I knew nothing about film other than an 8th grade film class I had taken years ago, but I had connections, and I talked with people, and I got people to teach me how to do things, and you know, it just took a very long time. A lot of things I had to learn the hard way, but after 2.5 years, I got it out there. My first threesome was a really funny story, because I was not really technically poly at the time. My long-term partner and I, we've been together for, at this point, 13 years. And at that point, I think we'd been together for like, I don't know, 6, 7, something like that. And we had talked theoretically about being poly, what that might look like, and we talked about it for a long time, but we hadn't actually come to any specific agreement. And then I went to a conference, and there was this one guy there who was really cruising me, and he was really like so forward and flirty in such a great way, and he was hitting on this other trans woman at the same time. It was a trans conference, so all of us were trans, and one thing led to another. We didn't have any space, so we just went into the single stall bathroom in the building and fucked. And it was really great. I got to like hold him while she went down on him, and he was all shuddering in my arms. That was such a really fun feeling. I'd never had anything like that. But the thing was, when it was over, I was still in that like elated, so happy, high feeling. I called my partner and I said, "Honey, guess what? I just had a threesome in the bathroom." And she was just kind of like, "Okay, good for you." And it was kind of funny because, you know, instinctually I knew that given the circumstances it was going to be okay, even though we hadn't actually negotiated that. But it kind of was the thing where she kept telling me afterwards that it was so funny that I just, you know, automatically thought that she would take it as a good thing. And, you know, I wasn't calling and being like, "Oh, sweetie, I have something I need to tell you," or, "Oh, I fucked up and went past our boundaries." No, I was just like, "Guess what happened?" You know, I think one of the things is practice makes perfect. Like, I hear a lot of people be like, "Oh, I know someone who was poly for a while and it didn't turn out well." And it's like, you know, most people's first monogamous relationships don't tend to turn out very well. Most people's first polyamorous relationships have problems too. And so, like, there's various balancing, and I think one of the things that one of the lessons I learned the hard way was to really be conscious of my own needs. That it was really easy for me to worry so much about other people's needs that I wasn't really thinking about mine in a conscious way. You know, one thing I really want to change about how porn operates today is this weird third gendering thing of trans people. Like, I got my film set up on a site somewhere where they list out all the performers for every film they've got as male, female, or trans, so that a trans person essentially can't be either male or female. And it's really kind of weird and fucked up, and I think that, you know, trans women should be women, trans men should be men. For genderqueer folks out there, there should be some kind of option for that too. But I think it's definitely useful to have trans people be noted if the performers are comfortable being out about their trans status. But I also think that there shouldn't be this real focus on trans people's gender history to the exclusion of understanding that, you know, non-trans people have gender histories as well. And so if you're going to be listing out everyone who's trans, then the most equitable thing to do would be to also list out everyone who's not trans and list that as cis. And that trans should be a category separate from gender. Trans status is different from whether you're a man or a woman or something else.